Want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're super excited. We're kicking off our Gunbarrel Shuttle Marketing and Branding Kickoff meeting. And as Elaine said too, if you wouldn't mind putting your name and business or affiliation in the chat, or if you're a resident of Gunbarrel, that would be terrific. So I am Karen Rominghouse with Boulder Chamber Transportation Connections. And I have the fabulous pleasure of being joined today by Danny O'Connor from the Transit Program Manager from the City of Boulder and Tracy Jones from Studio 6. They'll both be giving a presentation a bit later. I'm just going slow while we let a few more people trickle in, but we're delighted to give you that you could join us for this introductory conversation and overview of the Gunbarrel Shuttle service, which is scheduled to launch later this fall. And as I mentioned, Danny O'Connor, the agenda for the meeting will be that I'll just kick things off here, and then Danny O'Connor from the city will be giving a transit program overview and the transit planning aspects behind the shuttle, and then Tracy will give us an overview of the branding project. We're super excited to be diving into that this summer. And first, I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge and thank the Boulder Together investors who have been instrumental in seeding and supporting this project and our efforts regarding this project. The Gunbarrel Shuttle has been a key initiative of the Boulder Together program for over 4 years. And the Boulder Together program is a strategic multi-year initiative. It's designed to address the highest priority areas of Gunbarrel's economic and community needs. And as many of you know, probably either as being employees or employers in the area or residents, there are over 9,400 jobs in the Gunbarrel area, 40 of which are considered essential, and 11,500 residents. So we recognize that there's a vital need for really good public transit in this region, particularly in light of the service reductions that RTD made during the COVID timeframe. So having really good public transit and the first mile, last mile connections are super important. So our goal today is basically just to give you an overview of both the transit planning aspects of the project as well as the branding aspects of the project, and then invite you to join our advisory committee to help shape the branding and marketing of this shuttle. So that's a brief overview. Again, too, if you just joined us, please do feel free to put your name and affiliation in the chat so we know who you are. Feel free to turn your camera on as you wish, but particularly if you jump in to ask a question, it's super helpful if we can see your smiling face as well. So Danny, I think we'll be covering this a little bit more too, but in addition to the Boulder Together investors, I want to spotlight this. The project is a public-private partnership project with significant funding from Boulder County, RTD, DRCOG, which is Denver Regional Council of Governments, and the City of Boulder, as well as a private developer. So it's really been a team effort to get this to this point, and we're super excited to be at this point where we're actually going to be diving in and talking about actual shuttle service and what the branding will be like. So I'm going to turn things over to Danny. And Danny, you're welcome to, you can just let me know as you'd like me to advance through the slides.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you, Karen, and good morning, everyone. So please, you could take some time this morning to join us. And as mentioned, I'm Danny O'Connor. I'm the Transit Program Manager with the City of Boulder. And what I'd like to do is just kind of give an overview of this new service that we're looking to launch in the Gunbarrel area, just kind of explain what it is, how it fits with just various key priorities and strategies that we're looking to advance here within the city and in Gunbarrel in partnership. And then just talk a little bit about kind of next steps and where we are in the process of basically procuring and launching the service, and then how that fits with really trying to getting some strategic marketing and branding around the service as we launch this new and only in Boulder. Um, so we continue to call this the Gunbarrel Shuttle, and really, what is it? These are kind of in a nutshell. There's three images on this slide that really kind of explain what it is. Um, it it's a concept you might hear as microtransit, and what it basically involves is smaller size shuttles, like you see there at the bottom. These are kind of examples from Washington, D.C., that provide point-to-point service within a defined service area. And the map on the right is basically a kind of a service map in DC, where one of these microtransit shuttles are running. And as you can see between the lines, those are kind of just different demands that occur, just different trip patterns, going to and from different locations. So it's not a traditional bus route and operating on the same streets at the same time every day. It's basically operating kind of on demand within the zone, based upon how riders are requesting what's available in the service, and just quickest points from point A to point B. We're seeing services like this all across the nation. There's many similar services that have launched in Denver, and it really has some key components with it that not only is it demand responsive and working kind of within a defined service area, it's also making connections to the other transit routes within the area. So that's basically a way to expand the reach of those routes. It's tech driven, where services are primarily scheduled through apps on your phone, where you're calling up your trip, ride hailing, very similar to Uber and Lyft. And it has dynamic routing, so the routing could change day to day, trip to trip, just really based upon demand and quickest options from point A to point B. And then it features really branded service and shuttles that we'll talk a little bit more about today. You can go to the next slide, please, Karen. I think what's kind of important really to frame this up is, we at the city and with our regional partners, our partners at Boulder Chamber, the Visitors Bureau, Transportation Connections, we've all been really trying to find and identify creative and innovative, meaningful ways to enhance transit within the community. And a strategy for shuttle service within the Gunbarrel area has really been kind of codified and a priority since 2014. We had this as part of the city's renewed vision for transit. And not only did that vision basically include a concept for shuttle service within Gunbarrel, but it also included and is helping us advance BRT service on Colorado 119. And then, not to go through all of these, but, the concept's been carried forward in more definition within the City of Boulder's 2019 Transportation Master Plan. Our partners at Community Solutions did kind of a deeper dive into what the service could look like as a companion, as a companion to the Colorado 119 BRT that's in development, how to best interface and expand the reach of that. As Karen mentioned, our partners at Boulder Chamber have prioritized this as a Boulder Together initiative. And when you think about what the service is, it's all three of these priorities: quality business, workforce, and community infrastructure, all wrapped in one service. And then, our partners at RTD have also helped us plan and solidify this as a concept worth advancing. Everything from putting it into their latest system plan to providing partnership funding, as well as Boulder County to basically help us get service launched here this year. Next slide, please. So, and why we're doing this, and what is the need in Gunbarrel, and why microtransit, why a shuttle? we feel, that really what, the unique options and opportunities that the shuttle service offers really fit kind of the land use, the geography, and really the composition of what Gunbarrel is. This is a service, this is a type of service that works really well in kind of a mixed suburban area where the streets might not be, your traditional grids, where there's a bit of mix of housing, employment, all sorts of uses, and where the area is a bit more spread out. This is, enhanced transit service does everything that we find is a priority at the city of Boulder in our transportation policies and programs in supporting community, economic, and environmental resiliency. And, I think when we talk about practicality, what this does is it restores transit in a market that recently lost RTD service. As Karen mentioned, 2020 RTD cut back Route 205 service to the Heatherwood area that's along Lookout Road and 75th. This Gunbarrel Shuttle will restore service within that area and more, which we're very excited about. Therefore, bringing not only the area but connecting it, in with existing RTD services, the 205, the Bolt, and the future Colorado 119 BRT. This area, as we look at the demographics, really the markets, the opportunity here, there are so many travel needs within this area, everything from journey to work, school trips, people needing to get to and from essential services. And we feel that this shuttle will help basically expand and enhance travel options with that. And as mentioned, we're very excited and continue to work with our partners, our regional partners, CDOT, RTD, Boulder County, Longmont, on the launch of Colorado 119 BRT that's currently scheduled for 2027. And we feel that launching this service this year is not only going to kind of prep the area and the market for 119 BRT, but it'll serve an immediate need, but also begin to expand the reach and really the opportunities of 119 BRT will do. We're seeing our partners in Longmont are launching similar microtransit shuttle service this year that will also be coordinated with Colorado 119 BRT. And as mentioned, this is something new for Boulder. This is really kind of going to be a pilot project that we're going to really, be very interested to see how it performs and see if it makes sense to replicate in other areas across the city. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of kind of discussion on what the service will look like. So as mentioned, if you can recall from that first slide, that showed kind of a zone in Washington that was set up for microtransit shuttle service. This is the proposed zone that we have for Gunbarrel. It's 4.5 square miles. And within that area, there's about 11,500 in population, 9,800 jobs, and 40% of those are considered essential jobs. Just to orient you with the map, the west side is Colorado 119, south side is J Road. North is basically Lookout Road, but it's the areas north of Lookout Road as well. And then east side is primarily 75th Street, but it also includes Heatherwood neighborhood. The green routes that you see, there's two of them. There's the one that's run diagonal is the current Bolt. That's the express service between Longmont and Boulder. And there's also RTD Route 205, which currently travels on 63rd Street and hubs at the King's Supers. There's also kind of a dot there. I don't know how well that's being read right there at 63rd and 119 with that call out box, but that's the future location for the Colorado 119 bus rapid transit services coming. We can go to the next slide, please. And so just a little bit more about the Colorado 119 BRT on the left-hand side is really what we're looking at as far as kind of the route map for what this will be in 2027. This will be very, significant regional stops, express service between Boulder and Longmont. And, with this Gunbarrel Flex, one of its main connection points will be here at 63rd Street, which is the diagram here on the right. So this is the proposed station layout. It's a little bit, you have to orient yourself that north is to the right of the map. So once you can get your head around that it took me a little bit to do that. 63rd Street is basically that street crossing at a diagonal, and 119 is left and right. We'll have a park and ride facility in the middle of 119. There's going to be some large BRT stations on both sides with protected crossings. And then as well as a bikeway running down Colorado 119 between Longmont and Boulder. So our Gunbarrel Shuttle will make connected stops and location or connected stops with this BRT service. Really allowing residents, workers, those traveling in and out of Gunbarrel to have a connected transit opportunity from this stop location into the service zone that we showed earlier. So door-to-door service. Next slide, please.
Well, we have the slide up. Danny, do you want to just say a bit about the Q bypass lanes for the bus and how they function?
Sure. Yeah, sure. And you have to pardon, I'm not
or I can
I'm not an engineer, but
or I can jump in there too. But
basically the concept is Karen's referring to, there's going to be Q bypass lanes. And what this will do, these are special signals and also lanes that are going to allow the Colorado 119 BRT to basically jump the intersection safely, bus only, so that it can get to and from these stops and get the advantage of speed up and down the corridor, making that transit trip very attractive.
So as I understand it, like when the bus, and I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not, but like if there's a red light, and it turns green, the bus will be able to go first before the rest of the traffic off of that stoplight. So basically anytime the bus makes a stop and then proceeds on, it will get ahead of the other traffic at the mostly single occupancy vehicles waiting at the stops of the bus. That's part of how the bus will gain some time on the rest of the vehicles traveling through the corridor. So great, thanks.
Yeah, it's a premium treatment, really, to ensure that the BRT has expedited, kind of an advantage for speed and reliability for riders and gaining new riders. So yeah, go to the next slide, please. And then I think just real quickly on next steps. So there's, as you can imagine, we have quite a few steps that we're coordinating to successfully, to get ourselves to launch. There's some just, final kind of plan refinement around the service zone and in coordination with RTD. We have some funding agreements with RTD in Boulder County that we're in process of finalizing, and those are so important because they're basically giving us the funding, 3 years of funding to underwrite the service, get it launched successfully and up and running. We're going to talk a little bit more about the branding and marketing plan that you're all here today to hear more about and help us with. And then, the City of Boulder will be putting this service out to bid through an RFP, a competitive RFP, secure an operator that's coming up. And really our intention is, and plan is to launch this service this fall. As mentioned, it is a pilot program. We have 3 years of funding, 2024 through 2027. And that's going to give us really, I think, some great opportunity to evaluate, tweak the service as necessarily, adjust it, And then it can also become really what we're looking forward to and excited is, the lessons learned, the demand, the opportunities, how do we continue it forward if we deem it valuable, and look for other opportunities to potentially launch this in Boulder and further strengthen our transit network. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Karen.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we're just going to open up for questions here a little bit in case we had any transit related questions of the material that Danny covered before we move on to Tracy's branding presentation. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and speak up, or you could potentially put it in the chat too, and eventually one of us will see it. But does anybody have any questions on that portion? I guess that means you covered it super
Great.
well.
No, thank you.
We got a clapping there from Mary. Thank you, Mary.
Oh, good.
Are you familiar, Mary, with the Colorado 119 project as well too? Is that something you're pretty?
I am, but I can't figure out how to. Oh, there's raise my hand. I'm raising my hand now. I have a couple of questions. First of all, who is the private developer?
Yeah, that's Andy Allison. He's working on the Spine Road development. It's been a bit delayed, but this project is moving forward ahead of his development. But it's Andy Allison is the
How do you spell his last name?
Allison.
And he is just a single person. Does he have what does he do?
He's a private developer. I think Allison Enterprises, I believe, is his development company.
And what is he doing on Spine Road?
It's a residential development. I don't have the number of units right off the top of my head.
And is that where the Chase Bank is?
No, it's vacant. It's vacant land right now.
Where is that
land? It's near Celestial Seasonings. It's right near Celestial Seasonings.
Okay. And another question. Why not just restore that extra length of 205?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mary. We have asked and advocated that of RTD, and they not only after they cut the service. It's been 4 years now, which is hard to believe that was cut in April of 2020 with their COVID service plan. They have gone through even more strategic planning, in which they have set basically a service plan through 2027, in which they're only restoring about 85% of what they previously operated in 2019, 2020 levels.
What percentage?
About 85% of what they. So this, that portion of 205 was a casualty of that. I mean, we had many casualties across Boulder, but that was one of them. Okay. And so therefore it was part of our ask. And I think just really the need to move this project towards, implementation was, once it became obvious, and they adopted that plan, that they weren't bringing that back. How do we get some service restored in here? That cut to Heatherwood was a big deal. The stops are still out there. There were many, many residents who I heard from, BVSD students, people trying to get to and from Walgreens, medical appointments, King Supers. And so, I think that's one of the opportunities with this service is, hey, at least we can get this back in. It will have connections. We are planning it to, interface and connect with the 205 that currently does, it still goes to King Supers, as well as those services. It's Bolt, and then it'll be the Colorado 119 on BRT on 119. So
a couple other questions. How much will this service cost to the resident? And how is this going to be different than Uber or Lyft?
Yeah, so the cost will be zero fare. So there's no cost to the resident.
During this pilot project.
During the pilot project. And, that's really our intention, is to, as long as we're running it, see if we can just underwrite the fares altogether. So it's curb to curb. So to the rider, there won't be a fare. There will be a fare if it's a connection, if they're taking a connection to and from the RTD services, say it's a transfer to the 205, they'll have to pay the
Sure.
fare on that.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
and then you asked one more question.
How is this different from than Uber or Lyft? But you just answered
Yeah.
that. If it's free,
Yeah.
that it doesn't sound sustainable to me. I mean, if you had to pay for the 205, and even that didn't garner enough usage, so they cut that back. If this is a free service, you might get a lot of people, but how is this going to be paid for in the long run after the
Yeah.
pilot program is done?
Yeah, so I think that's really kind of the opportunity with this, is that RTD has pledged, we estimate the service will run, probably, 500,000 plus or minus a year. We have funding, both from RTD and Boulder County, that will basically cover the operating costs. And even with it being a pilot, I think both partners are interested in, finding a way to continue if it's successful too. So it's partnership funding that RTD has, formalized in its budget, and it's something going forward. And it's part of their strategy, and program. And we just really appreciate the partnership in the sense that, that they realize that they can't put all the service out that's probably needed. And are there some creative ways with local governments and what have you to get other service that's out on the street that's still transit, yet coordinated with their services? So, this was something that the RTD committee, their board recommended, which I think is a really good sign. And then, and we look forward to, it being a success and hopefully continuing it beyond the pilot. So.
How is Mr. Allison involved? What's his skin in the game?
He provided some of this, some of the seed funding to help us get this program. Like we applied for some grants and so forth. So he provided the seed funding, and then he's also providing some additional funding once the development is built as part of his TDM plan, transportation demand management. Transportation demand management plan. And I don't know if Elaine, if you were gonna say anything more, but yeah, he helped us get to this, was one of the major players that helped us get to this point, because initially we didn't have the grant funding. So his initial seed funding allowed us to have the capacity to have, we actually, Danny and I and various staff from RTD, this has actually been years in the making. We've had over 2 years worth of meetings just to get to this point, and to get successful grants underneath us, under our belt. So yeah, his initial investment helped us get things off the ground, so to speak, with the planning process.
Yeah, many of the grants do require that kind of matching funding. Diana has her hand up. We have a question in chat, and then Ken has his hand up.
Yeah, I have the same questions as someone put in the chat. How many buses? And they were also asking about the age requirement to ride alone and the hours.
I can talk to hours. I think initially we're going to operate at 5:30 to 7 on weekdays. We'll see how demand goes, and really, how well we can stretch our funding. If it depending on a lot, really is going to depend on what comes in with those bids and how we match the service. Right now, the service is planned to at least have one bus in circulation at all time during that span, that 5:30 to 7. But depending upon the bids and how they come in and how these operators respond, it might be more. The age to ride alone, I don't know if we have that policy. I don't know if I have that policy off off the top of my head, but what I would imagine we would do is try to match what RTD's is currently, since they are partnership funding this, and the service will be integrated.
I mean, I know that particularly in the Heatherwood neighborhood where there's not service, BVSD has certainly expressed interest, and hopefully this will help connect and provide for at least for the, I would say, middle to high school age students. Hopefully this will be a good avenue to get to school and so forth.
It seems like with things where you need to be on time, school activities, that maybe a few specific routes that would require at least a second van at certain times might be an idea.
Yeah, and I think what will be helpful is, this is dynamic. This is dynamic. We're going to get really good data based upon the app and the app reservations and kind of the requested trips, and that'll help just us and the operator basically best decide how to get the most robust service out to meet the demands that come in based upon the resources we have. So it could very well be that there's multiples running at certain times.
And even I'm thinking, I mean, the data won't show if people don't feel it's reliable for timing events. So I'm assuming there'll be some sort of survey, like, would you take the route if it was on a schedule? Like, would you utilize?
Yeah, we will do some, I imagine we'll do some survey work with that. I think we'll also have parameters of the parameters and expectation of the operator that, pickup needs to be within, 10 minutes of request or 15 minutes within request, and some of those performance metrics that will really help us kind of figure out how effectively it's working.
We also have in the Monticello neighborhood in Denver, they have a very similar service, and they've been very successful and have had to address some of those questions. And thankfully, our organization has a good relationship with them, so we can certainly reach out and talk to them. Yep. And I had noticed you had a hand up. Did you still have a question?
Oh, it got answered. Thank you.
Excellent. Then Debbie Richards has asked if we know what the cost will be once the trial period is over.
We don't at this point, but I think we want to make it as simple and user friendly as possible, and if it can be zero fare, I think that would be our goal. So.
Okay. And I think certainly too, we'd like if they're, hopefully it will be free, but if not too, I think the eco passes would be, if people have eco passes, that would certainly be honored. But that would be, I guess I'd say still yet to be determined based on ridership and so forth. And then there's another question of how many passengers does this shuttle capacity?
They're typically, I want to say between like 8 and 12. So think of those Sprinter vans. We will have ADA access capabilities with them too, but much smaller than your typical buses.
And I think in the interest of time, if anybody has any additional questions for Danny, feel free to put them in the chat, but I want to make sure we leave enough time for Tracy and her branding marketing presentation as well too. I'd like to introduce Tracy Jones from Studio 6. We're super fortunate to have her working on this project. She's renowned in the industry and specializes specifically on branding transit, and I believe you live in Longmont, so she's local, knows the area very well, and we're just super fortunate to have her assisting with us on this project. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, and then I think Tracy, you should be able to share yours. Oops, fabulous. No, why this is pulling up. Sorry about this.
Okay, all right. Karen, thank you so much for that introduction. And Danny, thanks for that incredible overview. As Karen mentioned, I am the principal and the creative director at Studio 6, and we brand and market transit systems around the country. But really what launched my career was branding the Go Boulder system. So I'm just really familiar with branding and marketing transit systems, really specifically in Colorado. Also, just as a note, we are also the agency who is working on the branding and the marketing for the Colorado 119 BRT system. So we're also in early conversations with City of Longmont's microtransit program. So we're just really familiar with everything that's going on right now regionally to tie all this together. As all of you know, whenever we brand or market, whenever there is a new product that's launched, marketing is going to play a significant role in generating sales. But what's really challenging is that when we market and brand a transit system, it is far more complicated than launching any product or service. And typically in the advertising industry, it is known that on average, you have to have 6 to 8 touch points that are required before your new service or product is even considered to be purchased. But as I mentioned, selling transit is far more complicated. And the reason why is because we're really asking people to adopt new travel patterns. So not only are you asking people to adopt new patterns, oftentimes they've never used an on-demand service. And it's typically when you market or brand transit, it can be perceived as a big unknown. It can often be perceived as kind of scary. So what we do with systems around the country is we help them make transit easy to use, make it very appealing, and just so people really are attracted to use the service. When we market or brand public transportation, it often requires a lot more advertising than just your typical product or service. Of course, it always requires a deep understanding of the target market, but there's also a huge educational piece about how to use the new service. So just a lot more complexity when we're branding and marketing a new transit service. The reason that you all are here today is because you have a pulse on the Gunbarrel community. In your voice, we really want to hear your voice as we develop the marketing program because you know who will use it. We know the particular outreach mechanisms that are going to be most effective, and you have your networks in the community. So we really want to hear your voice as we launch and brand this new service. What we want to do is, or what we will do is in late July or August, we're going to have a 2-hour stakeholder session, and we want all of you to participate in this session. And we're going to be discussing the advertising, the marketing, the branding. And again, we want your vision on what are the best ways to advertise. What are the current networks in the community that we can plug into? Of course, the target market is really essential. So, who are those people who are most likely to ride? And what are the best methods for reaching these particular people? And then, as I mentioned, education is such a huge part of launching a new transit service. So how do we create educational materials that will be most effective for communicating how we use this new service to residents, employees, and visitors in the Gunbarrel community? These are all topics that we're going to talk about in that 2-hour session, in addition to some logistical details of the service itself. So we really, once the operator will be determined, then we will set a date for this meeting. but just know that we're planning on a 2-hour live in-person session. And in these sessions, we really try to make this fun. We have food, we have branding activities, and we have a strategic discussion about transit in Gunbarrel. Everything that we talk about in these sessions will literally shape how we market in the future. So all of your voices will be heard in this session. We take that feedback and we translate all of your feedback into the vision of the marketing, the branding, essentially how it looks, and then the specific tactics of how we go out and specifically do the outreach. So what I want to do here is I just wanted to show you just a few examples of work that we've done in other communities, so you have a better idea of how that conversation, the types of information that we hear in these sessions, and then how we translate that information into a marketing and branding program. So this is, in 2016, Studio 6 was hired to brand and market the town of Winter Park's new transit system. And we worked with community stakeholders, just like all of you, to learn very strategic questions. We asked a lot of very strategic questions about what community members value about Winter Park, and then how do we take these community attributes and translate those attributes into a marketing and branding program. And again, these will be strategic discussions about Gunbarrel and how can we best market and brand this new system. The one thing that I do want to communicate, which Karen and Danny and I have had discussions about, is that in this Gunbarrel Shuttle, the idea here is that we're going to customize a marketing program, and that we're going to create a global brand for the on-demand service in Gunbarrel. So the fleet itself may not be, it'll essentially be an expression of the operator. So we're not going to have a dedicated fleet in Gunbarrel, because they want to use this vehicle elsewhere in the region, but we will be customizing the marketing program. So does that make sense for everyone? So we're going to develop an on-demand brand that will be utilized in the Gunbarrel area that may be used elsewhere in the community. And that really makes the operations much more efficient and cost effective. But I wanted to show you this case study in Winter Park. What we did in Winter Park is we asked a lot of very strategic questions, like we do in every single community. And what we learned in Winter Park was so essential to creating an effective strategy. What they told us was that they were trying to overcome the perception that they, in fact, are not winter. So because of their name, Winter Park, they were having a negative perception that they were only a winter destination. They instead wanted to drive tourism all 4 seasons. And that became a key component of all of the marketing and branding that we developed in the future. And they were also, all of the people, we really dive in to understand who are the target markets. In Winter Park, we learned that these are young people. They're there to ski, to snowboard, and they were really attracted to bright and lively, dynamic, modern graphics that they would see on your ski and snowboard gear. Additionally, the audience we were talking to that night was just, they really were proud of their mountain geography. So with all of these factors taken into consideration, we developed a brand that communicated their 4 seasons with a bright and lively color palette, and that really showcases a very modern look that was very reflective of the ski and snowboard gear. As a result of this work, we saw a 103% increase in ridership in 6 months. A typical increase in ridership by APTA, which is the industry standard, is a 6 to 20% increase in ridership after a marketing and branding program has been developed. And this saw a 103% increase in ridership. And once we develop the brand, we then go in and develop all the marketing components. So for this particular project, and much like the Gunbarrel Shuttle, is we will do custom photography with Gunbarrel residents. There will be a signage component. There will be a social media. There will be print. There could potentially just be some really fun giveaways. These were coasters that were given away to all of the restaurants. And on the back of these coasters, you have QR codes that drive you to schedule the service. So this is really what we're looking at for Gunbarrel, is developing a really dynamic campaign that's consistent throughout the community. And then this is what we did. This is what we recently did for Miva. This is a system that is in just north of Boston. The system originally was titled MVRTA, which does not roll off the tongue. So we renamed the system MIVA, which is short for Merrimack Valley. And they had a real problem in Merrimack Valley because this particular system just really it didn't have any visibility. So we really studied their target market and learned that this community based in Lawrence, Massachusetts, is the first minority majority city in the nation. There are 80% of the population is Latino. A huge percentage of these Latino residents are from the Dominican Republic. So they told us that one of the criteria was they really wanted this to be very colorful and familiar to the Latino residents. So we developed this brand and marketing program for Miva. They wanted it to feel very modern, very contemporary. Here you can see how colorful the brand looks throughout all of the consumer touch points. Within 1 year, this transit system saw a 120% increase in ridership. It had great visibility, and it has really been embraced by the community. So again, the same process here as we worked with their community stakeholders. They had the opportunity to weigh in on every decision that we were making, from the logo to the fleet to the marketing. They really played a huge role in making this very strategically successful by all of the graphic decisions that we made and how we marketed the service. This is a recent project for this. This is a project we just finished in Salt Lake City. We helped Salt Lake City launch a frequent transit network. A frequent transit network means that you will see service with a frequency of 15 minutes or less. So we helped Salt Lake City develop a huge multimedia campaign and their physical stop architecture throughout the city. And this frequent transit network included 3 core routes. So when we were hired, we developed maps, print, social media, and the feedback that we were given here was they did not want it to feel corporate. They wanted it to feel very fun and playful, and have a lot of illustration. And that was directed by the mayor's office in Salt Lake City. This was all custom illustrated by our team in-house. And what was really strategic here was we developed a direct mail campaign that coincided with the routes themselves. Additionally, we did video, social media, we did launch campaigns, just a massive effort when this service launched. And on one of the every single route received increases in ridership. But the outstanding figure here is one of the routes had a 433% increase in ridership as a result of this multimedia campaign. So that just shows you a few examples. Here, another marketing campaign that we did for the city of Trinidad was they were really having an issue in Trinidad where people perceived they have paratransit service. They have a paratransit vehicle or vehicles that are little cutaway vehicles, and people perceived the system as only being for disabled riders. They wanted to expand the target market for that particular service. So we created a dynamic print campaign, social media campaign. This was illustrated and showcased all the different types of people who might use the service and where they would be going. So this also had tremendous success, so much so that they had to stop the campaign because they could not keep up with the demand. So this was another just huge success story. But what we try to do at Studio 6 is really work with the communities. The reason that why that we're able to outperform typical ridership increases is because we have a very dynamic stakeholder process involving people like yourselves. And when you're able to weigh in on how you want it to be marketed, how you want it to look, it ensures the success of the system. And I really attribute this process to just tremendous transit success. So we really try to make transit fun and colorful and dynamic, but very community centric. So that is my presentation, and we just really look forward to working with all of you throughout the process and getting your feedback so we can launch something that really meets the needs of Gunbarrel.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Throughout your presentation, I kept putting the celebration piece on there because I just love, you guys can see why I'm excited to be working with Tracy and Studio 6. It's just, they just do incredible work and really make transit come alive and make it cool, and super excited for it. So we've got a couple minutes if anybody has questions for Tracy or Danny at this point too.
Could I mention just one
Yes,
other
please.
last thing that I think that I did not pay enough attention or say enough about? We on our staff, we have a wonderful and very talented photographer. And part of our differentiator as a team is his work. We just got back from California and did a big video shoot and photo shoot, but our goal will be to photograph the vehicles in front of the destinations throughout Gunbarrel and really showcase all the places that the system goes. So just know that photography, social media, a multimedia campaign will be a big part in rolling this new service out.
That'll be really fun, especially east side of Heather, where there's a nice trailhead to the White Rocks Trail. So helping people understand that this could be a way to get over to an area like that to help people move around.
Mhm.
I did see some people commenting about being excited about the working group. I do believe we'll be using this list of everybody who registered to invite folks for that. I don't know if we have a process yet, if we're going to look for a single target date or recruiting from multiple options.
Yeah, like Elaine just said, to anybody who is who registered for this meeting, we will certainly reach out to you once a meeting date is set for that. It hinges a bit on the RFP process for the shuttle provider and knowing who's going to provide the shuttle so that we know what our branding options are for the shuttle. But we'll be working with Tracy on that. So yeah, so if you've made it onto this list, if you know anybody else who didn't register for this meeting but would like to potentially participate in this, feel free to email me or Elaine. I think you probably have both of our email addresses, and we can certainly add additional folks as well too. But if you're already on this call, we'll definitely include you in our outreach efforts going forward.
And Mary is asking, so that would be late summer. I did notice the slides say targeting around late July, early August. I think on the BCT side, we will not be doing those first few days of August as we have a big conference coming to town at that point, but somewhere in that time frame. And I'm sure we'll be trying to get announcements out some weeks in advance, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I have a couple questions I could ask. So if other people do have questions, it would be great. I see Mary asking about the potential time commitment. Tracy, about how long does that kind of session usually last?
Yeah, so the first session, the first discovery session, we're planning on about 2 hours. So we'll have a discovery session and then a follow-up session where we're presenting. So essentially the first session is establishing criteria that the group wants to see. Then we have a follow-up session where we take all that feedback that we've been given and then we reveal, it's a big reveal, and everyone gets to see, you know, what we've developed since that last meeting and have an opportunity to weigh in on, okay, are there any revisions needed to decide on the brand, the look and feel of branding. So there are really 2 sessions at 2 hours each. But the dates, again, it's impossible to really plan until the operator is determined, but based on the process, yeah, we're looking at that late July type of time frame right now. But as far as an overall time commitment, I would just say, I honestly just about 2 sessions, 2 hours apiece.
Excellent.
But if you want to spend more time helping us promote, we welcome your additional time commitment.
Great. I did notice Greg had a question about marketing not being restricted to social media. So anything we could do at places like King Supers that are regular spots for people to go would be really good. And I know we did make sure to reach out to some homeowners associations, and those of you from the associations, we will really hope that you can help us out, because I know at my HOA, we do have a newsletter, and when I can say, hey, we really need to share this, it's a good way to get the word out to some of our locals.
I agree, and I think that the more this group can provide feedback on the best mechanisms for how we can do that outreach, so it reaches the most people, that's the goal. And it won't be restricted to social media at all.
And I was going to ask too, Tracy, do you think, I know for the Colorado 119 wayfinding branding, there was an online survey as well too. Do you think that might be part of the process, like either after the first session or so forth? Is that something that is that something that you think might be a good fit for this if folks can't attend the meetings?
Yes, I think we certainly could put out a survey, certainly, and follow up with additional email correspondence.
We didn't previously discuss that, so I just didn't know if that's something that would be
absolutely. If the survey's beneficial, we can certainly implement that.
Right.
And I know we're at time. I had a quick question, I hope, for Danny. Tracy, you inspired me hearing from Gunbarrel or from Winter Park people about specific needs they had. I was in a session with Crested Butte where they found that they had a shuttle for hiking and everybody wanted to be able to bring their dogs. So on the vans, do we think we'd be able to accommodate dogs and or bicycles?
Those are, just great questions, Elaine. I think that's something we'll have to really look at the specs. We're mirroring a lot of this off of the Denver Connectors program and what Longmont's doing, and I think we'll have to take a look at those and see if those are available options.
This is what I get for watching a lot of traffic and doing counts and realizing a lot of people would be single occupant vehicle drivers with dogs. So if there's other questions, I think we probably have time for like one more. I know we're just over time. Otherwise, people can definitely reach out to us at Boulder Chamber Transportation Connections.
Yeah, we just really appreciate everybody's time today, and would love for you to stay engaged with this group. And as Tracy said, to just help spread the word if you know of anybody who you think would have liked to have been part of this call, it just wasn't available. We did record this meeting. So once we get that recording uploaded, we'll send out a link as well to everybody that was on this call, so you can help spread the word that way as well too. So really appreciate the community interest, and it's just a very exciting project. So we're excited to be at this stage of things, and looking forward to it coming to life. Any other, Tracy, Elaine, Danny, any other closing comments? Great. Well, if not, I just really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much. And I will wish you all a good day and happy transit and bus riding. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.